recorded. So we can start. Let's start. Yeah, 5 o'clock.
Yeah. I know, I even have my travel side. Really don't need it.
Oh, it's too much fun. I mean, I'm going all this time and volunteering. You should go to get your.
Turn 5:01, right? Chapter 551. I call this meeting of the Manor Independent School District to order on October.
He was going on like buying
Yes.
permission first.
That was Janie was first.
And then negotiated.
Now, Ms. Rodriguez Barnett, so thank you so much for that and your commitment to being on the school board here with us. We are going to now move on to the mission, and I am going to allow Ms. Cortez to do that, please.
Collectively, as a community, Manor ISD provides equitable resources, a safe learning environment, and high-quality educational services for all scholars to successfully achieve and reach their full potential.
We will now move on to public forum. Ms. Perez.
Good evening. We do have two. For each person present in the boardroom who wishes to address the board, you will have 3 minutes to speak. Because we do not have a regular time set up, I will be keeping time on my phone. And then Ms. Cortez will let you know when we have 1 minute remaining to speak. When necessary for effective meeting management or to accommodate large numbers of individuals wishing to address the board, the presiding officer may make adjustments to public comment procedures, including adjusting the time allotted to each speaker. Because of topic posting requirements of the Open Meetings Act, board members are not permitted to answer any questions posed to the board by the patron, and no action can be taken on any issue presented during this time. Because this is a workshop board meeting, you will only be allowed to speak on any topic that is on the agenda. If you wish to ask questions to the board, you may submit them in writing, addressed to the superintendent's office, and the board may consider them at a subsequent meeting. If you are an employee or employee's representative, please be advised that the grievance policy deadlines are not waived. If you have documents to pass out to the board, please identify those documents. Finally, please be aware that rules of decorum will be enforced during the public comment period. Please refrain from making comments directed at specific individual employees, scholars, or board members by name to avoid any potential breach of confidentiality. If you have complaints regarding specific individuals, please provide those in writing addressed to the superintendent for his attention. Each participant is legally responsible for the content and consequences of his or her own statements. First up, we have Ms. Erica Hoffman. Topic of discussion is agenda item 1, which is 1882 partnership. I'm going to grab it.
Oh, I should wait.
Yeah, please.
Hang on, Laura. We're grabbing pins and stuff that we need. Is the front?
All.
Okay.
Okay, you can go.
Hi, good night. Good evening. Thanks for hosting this workshop for us to come to. I work at Manor Middle School, and I just want to recognize first that TEA has definitely put us in between a rock and a hard place with these accountability ratings. And I think the fear of a Houston ISD level takeover is valid. I think none of us want that for our community. However, I do want to address that Manor Middle School has not only failed since 2017, we did get our score up from an F to a D in 2021, which I was a part of, and that was with so much less support than what we have now, right? Like, we had teachers vacant. It was coming out of a traumatic time of the pandemic, and we still were able to get that score up, whether TEA acknowledges that or not. And our 2023 ratings have still yet to be released. They've been delayed twice now, and there's still an undetermined date in October for when Manor Middle School will actually be said to fail or not, right? So I will keep it short and just say that I urge you to please delay the implementation of this 1882 policy until the accountability scores have been released for Manor Middle School. We're putting in a lot of really strong and loving work on that campus, and it's really important to me personally that we know for sure our trajectory before we make decisions for not only our teachers on that campus, but for the students and community as a whole.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up to speak, we have Ms. Morales, and the same topic of discussion is the 1882 partnership.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Cindy Morales. I work currently at Manor Middle School, and this is my first year there at the school, and I love the campus. I enjoy wherever I work, everybody that I work with, especially the students. And I'm bringing some of the concerns to the table that I obviously heard today, not only from our coworkers, which is our custodial staff, as well as our students. In regards to that, they're asking me questions that there's times I don't even know what to answer. Okay, because I don't know what the outcome is going to become. I just say wait for news, and let's wait for the news to get better instead of thinking the worst. So I try to get into that positive, but I know I had custodial staff today asking me, should I put in my 2 weeks? I said, no, don't do nothing. I said, let's just wait. Let's keep it on there. Let me know what's going on. I don't even know what's going on. I'm new to the district. I enjoy working as where I'm at right now as a science teacher. I enjoy it, and I love helping the students. So I just want what's best for our school, for our students. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That is all we have for the evening.
Okay, thank you. We will now move on to information item 5.1, workshop discussion, 1882 partnerships. That is going to be presented by Ms. Maya Lagana. Before we start, you can, no, that's that. Before we start, just as board president, I just want to say that this is an information workshop today. We are not making any decisions whatsoever today. And I want our community to know that the last thing any of us want to do, I think I can speak for all of us, is shut down any of our schools. We are put in between a rock and a hard place. But we have to be prepared for the inevitable, or for the possibility of the scores coming out and it not being favorable. We have instructed Dr. Sermani to give Manor Middle School all of the support possible to be successful. And if there is anything that any teachers out there or administration thinks that will help, please get with the Dr. Jones or Dr. Sermani, so that he can take a look at all of those avenues, all of those choices. Decisions are hard right now to make, but we do want our community to know that we have to be prepared. And that is what these workshops are for.
Probably
yes,
by way of
please,
that,
go ahead.
let me introduce who Maya Lagana is. I'm more familiar with her than probably the board, or
Right,
the board may not be familiar with her at all.
It's the first time we've met you.
So Maya Lagana has worked with the district actually for 2 years. She's actually based out of Colorado, but she's been through the systems of great schools with one of our trustees, Ms. Frederick Barnett, attended the conference with us. And they provided in the past couple of years some monies to support a lot of our schools to change the design, so to speak, in different places. Once we started engaging, when I arrived in the district that first month in May, and I began engaging with TEA about what our options are with Manor Middle School, one of the questions I had was, so who can provide us support in navigating through the education agency rules? Ms. Lagana is not with TEA. She is not associated with them. However, the TEA folk recommended her as somebody who has successfully guided other districts about what their options are and how to potentially implement a charter partnership or any other direction we go. And so that's how she came. She was already paid for through the grant. She's not paid one way or the other, no matter what we choose to do. That's important to know. She is purely informational. She just happened to be here today, not just happened, it was all designed. She's here today working with our staff who are evaluating, as you know, the applications for charter partners. And just for the audience out there, you can get to those applications online. They are public, and you can read those three vendors are and read what their plans are, so that you can see for yourself what those are. And we'll also have a couple of other opportunities for the community to engage and hear directly from them as well as the board in the future. We'll have some events. So I invited Ms. Lagana here for the purpose tonight to, it's really focused on the school board. So I just note the audience. It's really focused on the board and their role in both whether to approve or adopt an AT&T partnership, whether under what conditions they do, and if we go that step further, what that contract might look like and what your role as a board would be in overseeing that process into the future. So this is an informational item, and so she's put that together with that in mind. So board members, certainly if you have questions that go along, please ask. This is for you. If there are questions we can't answer because they are things we don't know, because there are going to be some, I invited the chiefs here to record those, so as time goes on and we get further in the process, they will have those answers for you in the future.
I have a question. So Dr. Sarmani, I know that this is a huge decision and we've worked through it very hard, but we also need to be very transparent with our community. Are we gonna have translators since we have this aired, and Manor Middle School has a large Hispanic population as well? Last time, it's one of the, last time community members aired, concern over just translation and making sure that they understood everything that was happening. Is there something that we can do about this, or how?
Sure, we might be able to create a Spanish version after this. This is recorded, we can do it over. The last parent meeting we had, we did do it in Spanish and in English.
Okay.
I actually spoke to the parents that were there in Spanish.
Yeah, and the reason is because I know the public comment, even some of our custodial staff don't understand,
And that's certainly something, in the future, with custodial staff and the cafeteria staff, I can certainly go down there and speak with them to answer questions in the future as well. I think that that's well worth doing. Obviously they're hearing some things and want to make sure that they hear the correct information.
Exactly.
I'll actually be at Manor Middle School, actually, just independent of this. I check in with Dr. Jones, and I had scheduled a time to sit with him to ask him his opinion on how things are going right now with Manor Middle School and his staff, so that he can give me some feedback. But certainly while I'm there, I invite Gustavo, the supervisor, to hold this meeting so we can engage.
But we just want some clarity. None of this is happening this school year.
Today.
Nobody needs to put in any type of, 2-week notices.
Right.
For, yeah, so this is not, like, this is not Tuesday, if it happens at all.
It's not in 2 weeks.
It's not a Tuesday, this is, we're talking about
Next year.
next school year, if at all. So, I just wanna make sure we loud and clear with it. Don't go put in.
I'm just trying to think on similar.
Yeah, we
Sorry.
want everybody at work.
Yeah.
But, I want to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe we also, we could relieve some of the anxieties by creating possibly a leaflet or something that we could pass out to the employees. Whichever way the decisions go, like what implications, if any, to them personally it might have.
A fact sheet or
Some
something.
fact sheets of what each decision might mean for them, if anything.
And what we can do when I'm talking to Dr. Jones, I certainly find out if the staff is interested in having another staff meeting.
I was gonna ask, how many staff meetings have you had at Manor Middle?
Well, we haven't had any, well, we've had staff meetings, but I don't know if Ms. Gonger has had one since the school began. So speaking about new staff members, they may not have heard the message. Certainly returning staff members offered it, but it wouldn't hurt. Or if Dr. Jones feels like it's a small group situation, I'll be there. I can even talk with small groups of teachers.
But I think as we roll out possible timelines, it's kind of beneficial just to have something on the website that anybody can go to see, hey,
It is there.
what is, is there?
Right,
a way to
let's make
highlight
sure
on
you
the
do
page?
that.
It is.
Let's
Okay,
make sure
cool.
you do that.
Yeah, there's something called 1882 Partnerships Manor Middle School, Ignite Manor Middle School, and that links to the partner applications, the opportunities for engagement. There were, I put the new ones coming up after we do the process, and then the timeline. That's what I'm trying to read. for.
I don't know if we, I think we were thinking about largely for community members and not specifically for staff, so they can add. That audience is definitely.
Particularly.
Definitely for staff.
Yeah, and my question is, maybe a 1882 partnership, a lot of people might not understand it, maybe rephrasing it a little different and how that looks into the 1882 partnership, because a lot of people might think, or the audience might think, well, our community members, okay, it's not nowhere, it's not transparent, well, because nobody knows what 1882 partnership overview is, so maybe middle school, you know what I mean? Yeah, because,
And then not the others.
yes.
That's fine.
Just real quick before we get to you, Dr. Sermani, how long was the application left out with invitation? And then how many did we receive?
We posted late June, right? And then it was open until September 11th was the.
Okay, and how many did we receive?
We received 4 letters of intent, which were due in early August, so they were non-binding, and 3 full applications.
Okay. Oh, let's go ahead and get started.
I will.
And obviously, we're gonna stop you for questions.
Great, I love it. So just a little bit more background. So I'm part of an organization called Education First, which was matched with Manor ISD as their executive advisor for the System Great Schools many years ago. I, as an individual, have been working with the district for about 2 years. And again, continue to serve in that capacity, but also because of this process, Manor was awarded an additional grant from TDA to sort of support this process.
Sorry.
I will name, you guys please interrupt me, also tell me I am a native New Yorker and sometimes I talk really fast.
No, you were fine. We were just getting some distractions. in the-
And so before becoming a consultant, I spent 9 years working in Denver Public Schools where I did a range of things, including running our college quality schools process. During the time period, only opened about 25 charter schools, largely because of enrollment growth, less because of scenarios like what we're talking about here. Know the process well, and again, I'm here tonight to talk about the process. So I want to be really clear, I am not going to answer specific questions about the applications and how people feel about them, and so I know that might be frustrating for folks, so what are they like? That is to come, we will, they are public, so you can make your own opinions, but we will share sort of the team's findings and things about them at future meetings, but I just want to put that disclaimer out here right now, that is not why we're here tonight.
But you're not attached to any of those.
I'm not.
right? This-
No. I'm just here to help facilitate the process.
Okay, great. Thank you for asking that.
Um,
Real quick, there is food in the back for anybody who at any time wants to jump up and go get food, or we can take a break halfway through. Whatever y'all want.
Great. I don't know who's controlling the slide. So again, I am not from Manor. You all know the history of Manor Middle School much better than I do. It has struggled academically according to the A to F ratings. I do hear you about the improvements, so thank you for calling that out. Even though again, this is sort of how TEA views it, so that's why it's what's up here. We also do note, and Dr. Martin mentioned this, that there are schools in the district that have gotten grants to implement new programs, and they came with additional financial resources. Manor Middle School being one of those schools, which is in year 2 of its blended learning redesign. And again, I'm sure there are great things happening. I haven't had the opportunity to hear, but everything I've heard is that there are great things happening. And again, according to at least what we thought was going to be released a few weeks ago, and what we anticipate, but knowing there is that uncertainty, don't think it has shown the transformational gains that would have been required for it to you out between that the rock and a hard place, as people have described it. There's also been other changes, like 6th grade was moved off the campus. So again, things have been tried, and sort of that's why we are in this place. I don't want anyone to think that anyone in this district, this room, hasn't tried to improve Manor Middle School. I think we know the people that we heard from earlier today who are in there every day trying to help students and done everything they can. And thank you to our teachers. I think people in this room and predecessors have also tried sort of to take steps. So I just want to name, like, we're not here as a first step. And we're not here because people aren't working really hard every day. So I do want to name that. And we'll go on to the next slide, please. So again, to your point, what is an 1882 partnership? I mean, it's kind of a weird phrase, right? It's because it's Senate Bill 1882. But it's really to create a charter school, but an in-district charter school. So you are in a traditional charter school, so the KIPs that you see when you're driving down the interstate, right? Those are authorized by TEA. They have a contract with TEA. The district has no role. Except for trying to argue over where students are going to go. This is different. You all, as a district, would hold the contract with this school. They would be in your building. They would be serving more students. And they would still get to implement their model, right? That's why they are an autonomous school and not the Manor Middle School, right? But you all do have much more sort of a relationship and a partnership, right? And I think that's what we're really seeking to emphasize here is we want this to be a partnership. Where so you get things from them, you give things, and so you can go back and forth. There's some things here where it says they have responsibility over personnel, for example. And that's probably where the 2 weeks notice comment came in. A lot of this is up for negotiation. There are 18 partners in Texas where they've retained all of the teaching staff and they remain Manor ISD staff. There's others where they've retained most of them, right? Some of them don't want to stay. If you see, some partners have very unique models that teachers don't feel comfortable teaching in. They'd rather go to a different school that's more in their wheelhouse. So some of this will be negotiated as we sort of move forward in the process. The goal is we will hold them accountable for results. They will get autonomy to achieve those results in the ways that they, within limits, right? They have to follow laws, they have to do all those things. But so that autonomy for accountability trade-off. Go to the next slide. So why are we doing this? So we're going to talk about the rock and the hard place in a minute. But I think we also all believe that we want better outcomes for our scholars at Manor Middle School. We want great outcomes for all of our scholars. And while we're hopeful that what is happening is going to produce results, and again, I hear the improvements from tonight from staff that I've talked to, we know that our scholars also don't have time to push. And that's really important, right? Your education career is only supposed to be in the K-12 system. We also,
So for this to be implemented next school year, do you know the last day decision? Because ideally, we scheduled this meeting thinking we would have results, right? September 26th is supposed to happen, and it did happen.
yeah.
So when is the kind of the last day if the governor, well, I can't name off the governor. Strike that from the record. If TA does not give us results, when is the last day that we have to kind of move forward, not knowing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I think technically, like the absolute drop dead date to submit everything for an official 18-18 partnership for next year is in March. That said, there's a lot that has to happen to get there, and so you'll see the proposed timeline again. I think there's also a chance TDA, I haven't heard them say it about this process, but I've heard them say it about other processes that are dependent on accountability, that there might be shifts in timelines if ratings are further delayed. So I think I'm hearing.
I was just gonna say, the original timeline that we were
Yes.
given way back in May was, we have to choose a provider by November. We have to adopt the policy, that allows us to choose a provider by November. And we have to enter in a contract by December. Now, I did hear you prior to the accountability, that there is some flexibility they'll offer on negotiating a contract, but we have to enter it no later than January for sure.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I'd say, right, is if we're going to do this well, and we're gonna be transparent with our families who are choosing schools for next year,
Right.
it's also really hard to delay it, right, and so I think that's some of the challenges too. So TDA has put us all, I think, there's so many decisions, right, that are just in a hard place right now because of the lack of accountability ratings.
Now, in the event that, say, January or December, whatever that timeline looks like, we have to make a decision and then we get scores after the decision is made. Is there any way to undo the partnership, or because of the contract, we gotta move forward?
My understanding is once you enter the contract,
Yeah.
he expects it in time.
Okay.
Could
I'm
there
sure.
be a clause?
I thought we could do. You know, like if you look at the attorney, like if you have attorneys.
I am not a lawyer.
I'm not.
I'm just asking,
Yeah,
because it's not fair that we're put in this situation. And yeah. I'm
Because
just-
I imagine that probably TDA's view would not be, because there is money attached to help support the process that begins in January moving forward. And once TDA gets involved with money, they generally want to combine you at that point.
Yeah.
But it's always a question I can leave out there, so if it comes up, I can ask somebody who knows better than me.
Well, so, because we don't have closed session, we don't have a legal counsel with us here, make sure, Dr. Somali, to write down any legal questions that board members have. So
the
that we can
question-
consult with legal.
The question is, if we don't have scores to make this decision on, by the time we have to sign the contract, is there a clause that we can put in? Once the scores comes back, if they are favorable, to get out of it?
Fair question.
I was gonna share that, numerous, I talked to several people from TA at conference. Because everybody who is in this situation is eager and wanting to know. In all likelihood, the feedback came back that if the scores are not in, TA recognizes, because we are definitely not one of the only schools in Texas. There are quite a few
Many.
that this would impact.
Mhm.
And they already have, 90 schools in the lawsuit right now. So you get an additional number of people that the likelihood is that they're not gonna push the deadline that had been put previously to this situation with the scores, because it was all wrapped around the schools. And that they can push forward, give a different date and not adhere to that. And of course, all of that is speculation.
Yeah.
But the fact remains is we don't have any scores. And the fact remains that some people who receive scores will not have to go this way. So, they're not going to put themselves in a contract that is, NTA is not gonna get in that far. I believe. Just from dealing with, I think I've done 4 partnerships. All different.
Yeah.
They're all different.
They're all unique, it's true.
But the timeline of this forced from TA, I believe, will not stand the same because of the sport.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think take all the timeline information a little bit, more than a grain of salt, maybe a tablespoon of salt. And presume for now, and we'll do some digging with lawyers and DEA around like the implications of it if we don't have sports. So we can come back. I will say, and this is probably hard because I do think partner schools bring some positive things, right? Some of these are really proven models that are really unique, right? And, you know, a district can only offer so many unique models within its resources and staffing, et cetera, right? It's an opportunity to learn from a proven model, do something slightly different, and offer your scholars something slightly different. It does come with additional resources. And the other thing, fact is, right, Manor ISD has several campuses that you hope to see improved academic outcomes from. And so a partner is operating one, not that you like ignore it and never look at it, right? But it means that some of those resources can also go that way. Instruction approach perspective, things like that. Next slide. And then there's the hard place and the carrot that they dangle, right? 1882 partnerships that meet all the requirements, and this is where the timeline actually becomes very strict currently, is that I'm getting additional funding for 1882 partnerships. So an additional per pupil student amount that comes from DEA. I'm going to tell you the exact amount, it varies by district, by year, by everything. And their estimators are not super accurate. I've worked with Mr. Solomon, we're still trying to figure out a good estimate. But what it really seeks to do is to sort of create parity between how 1882 charter schools are funded and state authorized charter schools. Because there's a lot of different funding sources with different types of schools, and that's what it intends to create parity. And then of course there's the accountability exemption, right? Which is why we're all here tonight, is the reality. While there are other benefits, I think
But can you just tell us what that reality is? Because I don't want us to gloss over that everybody in the room knows.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, Dr. Schmidt, do you want to talk about why we're here? I think.
Yeah, I can basically say back in meeting with TA and then what I presented to the board in June, I think it was, basically ended up with three options. Option one, we have an 1882 partnership, which delays sanctions for 2 years while the district are still our kids. We still need to make Manor Middle School successful no matter what. The second option is to close the school completely. And with that, we would have to ensure that the students are spread out across the district in such a way that no more than 50% of the kids end up in any particular school. Then the third option they gave us is potential takeover of the district by June of 2024, if we didn't get above and out. And they told me also, if we even got a D, they said that would be fine for 1 year, but if you get a D the second year, it counts as an F and we take over June 2025. So I guess to finish the story, at that time, we didn't have accountability ratings, but internal accountability guesses were that Manor Middle School was going to be an F for the fourth time. And the risk to the district and to the autonomy of our district was too great to not move forward with an 1882 partnership. And then I couldn't fathom closing. It's hard to think about closing down the original flagship middle school, Manor Middle School, and it ceases to exist as a name. I mean, literally, they make you cross out Manor Middle School off your roads.
May I say that in conversations I had with DEA before even Dr. Sermani came on, were if you choose to close the school, you can't just close it and rename it like some schools have been doing. We are going to require you to separate all of those children and put them all in different places in the district. And so that was going to be a whole issue as well. And of course, when we hired Dr. Sermani, that was one of the greatest tasks that the entire board put him to, is we want a superintendent who is going to give a big focus to Manor Middle School and what our options are going to be, and work with TEA in getting and the board in presenting the best option. Because when they say takeover, it doesn't mean they're just going to take over Manor Middle School. They're going to take over the entire district. And then we're going to be in a situation like Houston. And so that's the rock in the hard place that we want the community and everybody to know.
Well, and then I want to give amazing shout out to Dr. Sermani, because this was all handed to him.
I know.
His first day was what, May 1st? He had to have this conversation June. So I don't want anybody sending him no email to say why you do this.
In his interview.
It was in his interview process, so it wasn't him. So don't say
Yeah,
the
it
email.
was not. It
Oh,
was,
so, yeah.
he was
So much you
handed
can email
a,
us, but he didn't.
he was handed a big job. It wasn't like he came in and said, this is what I'm gonna do.
Right.
Um,
I think it's any superintendent who chooses the first big
Yes.
splash in the district.
yeah.
Thank you, Pat, for that clarification. Assuming. Again, this is a little bit similar to what I said before, but I really just want to be clear, like, this is not the same as the charter schools you're used to seeing as you drive around the Austin area. These are still Manor scholars, it's still a Manor school. There will be a range of supports offered to this campus. This, again, specific will depend on the partner, right? Again, every partner is unique, as Dr. Thomas said, and that includes what supports they want from the district, what supports they most need. But we also know that there's things that are really important to the community and to this board in terms of certain things that every Manor ISD school should offer around extracurriculars and athletics and community engagement. And, you know, we can't tell a partner exactly how to do these things, so we can, both in how we are evaluating applications and then in the contracting process, define some non-negotiables. And really think about that. So again, I don't want anyone to see this as like the district is just like giving up on Maynard Middle School and being like it's someone else's problem now. That is very much not what this is. I want to make that very clear. And I think the goal is also that students will then continue on to Manor ISD operated high schools, right? This, they are again still Manor scholars, and maybe this goes so well that you want more partnerships, but presuming the current status continues of all your high schools like that, something they would then continue on, not go within and go to church school. Make that really clear. So now I really want to talk about like actually like the process, like how do we do this well? Because if we're doing it, whether we want to be or not. So I think the first thing is having high standards. You have high standards for your own schools, for yourselves as a board, and we want to make sure we continue to do that for the charter school. We want to hold it accountable for meeting the standards, right, which is yes, getting it out of the F status, but it's more than that, right? Because we all believe that our scholars deserve so many things, both that things that are measured in A to F and things that aren't. So again, I want to make sure we hold them to these standards, and we'll talk a little bit about what the role of the board is in doing that relative to the staff and the community. But also at the same time, there's that other side, right? We have to honor their school autonomy. You can't hold them accountable, but never let them do the things they believe are going to get them to those results. Every district and every board and every partner has different autonomies. Again, right? Things like extracurriculars are really important to you all, and that's something that's not negotiable. We'll put that in the contract, but you can't say you have to do things exactly like they're being done at Manor Middle School now, because that's why you're seeking a partner, right? Is to potentially do some things differently. And then really, you know, protecting student and public interest. You all will still be overseeing the school. There's fiscal responsibilities, there's legal responsibilities that we'll have to continue to make sure are maintained. You know, and I think we'll talk about the process a little bit. One of the things we'll call the districts that some of these schools are already operating in to see if they're doing these things in their current schools. None of our applicants don't have schools already. There's no like, brand new program, and so there are people to talk to really understand if they're able to do these things well. I will say these come. Oh, it's okay. Sorry. No, it's okay. There's a National Association for Charter School Authorizers who have a whole principles and standards document that these are taken from. TEA also runs sessions, and there's modules online to learn about what those mean in the Texas context, which we'd be happy to share. If anyone's interested, and I know you were able to participate in some of the overview sessions at Summit, hours and hours of video modules. If people really want to dig deep, but these are the ones that felt most applicable in this particular context. Sorry, now we can go. So I want to talk a little bit about roles and responsibilities. First of all, in the approval process, right? So when we're deciding if and who to partner with, and then we'll talk about once you have a partner in place. So you all will receive a recommendation from Dr. Somani and his team about who they believe is the best partner for Manor Middle School from the application to receive. You will also receive information about each of the applicants, right? We don't want you to feel like the district got 3 applicants, but you all are only being presented this one. So we will present that information. We will have events for community and you all to hear directly from the applicants and give feedback. And then it is ultimately your decision as a board to approve both the partner and then the specific terms of the contract. Those will be at 2 separate meetings, because again, we need some time to negotiate because every partner wants something different. Staff will make that recommendation and present the strengths and risks of each applicant to the board. And there is a team of about 10 to 12 staff members that are reviewing each of the applications. It's also been shared staff at the school, and again, they are also public, so anyone can read them, provide feedback. And then the staff will also sort of be responsible for doing the nitty gritty of negotiations, probably with some parameters that you all set as a board. But right, how much does it cost for them to buy transportation back from the district? Like, there's people in this building, right, who should be doing those conversations. You also want to get into those.
Yeah.
Not into that.
Correct.
Bus routing, not my expertise. There's lots of people that it is. Whereas the partner, right, whomever you all partner with, is responsible for submitting their application and aligning with the requirements, participate in these events. Technically, we can't force them to, but clearly them choosing not to participate would be a part of our decision. And then to negotiate that contract with the district. I'll pause here because I think like sort of what is the role of the board versus superintendent and staff is one of the reasons we decided to have this presentation. So I want to concern for anything anyone with that.
What additional support do you feel like you need at this time, or is it, hey, I went through, we're gonna, I guess I'm more interested in the thought process for behind, one, how did you get to the one, right? So when we get to that point where you have like a short synopsis there, but then I also know that like, things sometimes fall apart in contract, and we don't want to be like, we want that one, and then if something falls apart.
You may have to get that one.
Yeah, that makes it very difficult to go back and be like, hey, I do like this.
Well, I think, being fair and upfront with people, because remember, we're gonna rate them on every aspect of their operation, from their transportation plan to their finance plan to, obviously their curriculum and instruction model. So all those things are gonna be rated in there. And then, we'll eventually, even if we need to, or will, do references and potentially drive to go see. So we'll wrap all that up, but there's a way to do that in a way that's respectful, professional, that will give you the information that you need, and thinking behind those decisions. And in the end, where it comes down to, we're gonna look for who is the partner best for our context. And that doesn't mean somebody else isn't good, it means it's just not for us. Different districts have different thought processes about different culture. And, we need a partner. If we're really going to have a partner, you want a partner that's going to have our culture, not one that's going to be constantly rubbing us wrong because they see things differently all the time. And so that's going to be one of those key things as we evaluate is who do we think really fits.
I think one of the things I'm hearing from you too, you don't want to approve someone and then not be able to get you an agreement in contracting. And I think one of the things
I don't have a solid backup.
we talked about today as a staff, as a sort of review team, like, for instance, I think all of the applications had wildly different 6th grade enrollment targets
Right.
for their program, right? Because there's not a 6th grade at the campus right now. And they weren't sure how many to estimate, right? But the reality is we want every 6th grader who wants to go there and lives sort of nearby and be able to go there. So that's what we're gonna ask them about before we bring it to you. Like, are you willing to serve all the students? Like things like that. I think there's something we'll also get out in front of, like what we think, some of those non-negotiables before we bring you, even though they're more for the contracting phase, we'll make sure there's some agreement before we even get to approval. I'm sure there's gonna be more of those, that's what we were just talking about before we came in here, so top of mind. Great, so oversight process. Sorry, back one. So you all are welcome to clearly I visit the school, talk to folks, right? But the reality is, hopefully, you all won't have to take any action about this partnership. There will be no votes until their contract's up for renewal in 3 years, right? Once you approve them, you're in a contract, hopefully things are going well. Really, the only time there'll be
No, go ahead after you're done.
I was gonna say, the only time there would be a vote before that 3 years, that's like taking action on the schools if things are going really poorly, probably, and you need to revoke the contract before you get to the end of it. That doesn't mean that there won't still be regular updates to you all about how things are going, right? And I think in some districts, they have the partner, whoever's operating the school, come in and do those updates directly, so you guys can ask the questions. They might be the only ones that know. Other districts, they'd actually rather Dr. Shamani and others include it as part of their broader how are things going in our school's presentation. That's something you all can work out. Not doesn't mean you won't hear anything, because hopefully you don't have to take any action from the end of those 3 weeks.
Okay, so I heard you say, and this is now my question, I don't even recall if this was addressed or not. Contract, 3-year contract. So once we enter, is it a minimum of a charter partnership contract that is required by TEA? And
The standard contract is 3 years.
Okay.
Because when you think about the accountability exemption and things, like you'll have 2 years of data and it comes up for debate in the 3rd year. There are clauses in the standard one, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't tell you the details, but there are revocation clauses, like they're like, they break the law, like different things, in the model contract, and that's something we can talk about later.
okay, good. So that's probably something that we need to make sure our attorneys look at.
Absolutely. So just real quick, Mr. Hood. So when you say standard, so is it required or is it standard?
So there is a model contract from TEA,
Okay.
that if you use the model contract 100% as is, you don't even have to get it approved for this school to be eligible for the 1882 financial benefit. There are, you are allowed to make changes, but then there's just a different process
Okay.
to get those changes approved by TEA in order for the school to be eligible for those additional financial resources.
And in that contract, it's 3 years? Yes. Okay, good. Mr. Hood.
I know we're not gonna get to this tonight, but when you present to the board, can you really walk us through what that progress monitoring is gonna look like? Is that gonna be just for star results? Is that gonna be benchmarks? Is that gonna be whatever that looks like, so that we know if they're being successful? Because one of the things that unfortunately got us here was that, we kind of got hit with all the information at the same time. So I definitely want us to have increments throughout the time, that we don't get 3 years out and be like, okay, now this.
Accurate information.
I would say on that.
Yes, accurate information as well, yes. Which, like I said, Dr. Samad had nothing to do with it.
Right.
So I don't want anybody making a room without accurate information.
Go ahead, Ms. Rodriguez.
So I would ask too, on that monitoring and being able to see data. I know one of the continued concerns, just in general, not necessarily charter schools that have 1882 partnerships, but when we start looking at how they operate and how they treat special populations, as well as disciplinary issues, I think it'd be helpful for us to understand what that looks like. This board is highly concerned about special education and special populations and about discipline and security. And I know that transportation, security, M&O, that's charged back to the school. But understanding some of that and what that looks like and being able to see perhaps examples of other districts and other charter operators and how they display that information and share that back to the board would be very helpful.
And what alerts look like in a crisis, because we already have like a crisis plan for, other schools with us not being in control of the day-to-day. What will that look like if there's a crisis on that campus? How does law enforcement get there?
Yeah, and I think safety and security is one thing that I think some districts are, especially with the new legislation in the state and stuff, starting to actually, we're gonna insist on doing that for you. Partially because they're moving into one of your facilities that's already sort of set up with your systems and stuff, usually. That's not usually something charters want to take on, but we can make sure of that. And yes, and I figure we do have someone with special education, I think we're going to have a whole team on the review team as well, and things like that as well, but we'll sort of make sure it's progress.
Thank you.
I'd like to add to that staff retention. And I have been in situations where with the full year, also been in those that after a year, things were not good and the report was not good, so the contract ended after a year. So I know that that is not a binding, for a year.
Yeah.
Just that you locked in there. Different things can go on. And we won't be locked.
one piece I like to call is, as I remind my staff all the time, kids are still out.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Can't be going in and out.
we're gonna try to make them as successful as possible if we go this direction, no matter what direction we go, that's our charge. So in order to do that, regardless, we have a progress monitor. So whether they're gonna fit into our system, which you're gonna start seeing with House Bill 3, progress monitoring, they'll probably have to come with our cadence. Probably, I guess that's negotiable, but they're gonna have to provide some sort of comparable presentation of data, just like we're gonna be producing on a regular basis for you.
Well, I think the alignment of the rigor, and I mean, that's your wheelhouse, what that progress monitoring, because we've gotten benchmarks in the past where our internal process is rated Manor Middle at one thing, and then we got our star results, they rated completely different. So just the alignment of rigor to know that when we get this progress monitoring, it's on par with how they're gonna actually perform.
Staff again will monitor progress towards benchmarks and intervene if necessary, provide negotiated services. That should say to the partner, I apologize, and pass along state funds and then make renewal recommendations or revocation recommendations. Partner operates the school, so in the name, operating partner. Provide regular progress updates and then support the campus as needed to make benchmarks. And so like one of the things the application does ask, again, all of them to read them, right, is okay, if things aren't going, it's easy to put out a plan, right? But if things aren't going well, what is your corrective action plan, right? So like we talk about what are your benchmarks and is it nationally norm? Why do you believe it's one of the stars? So have those conversations. Maybe the next slide. I think this might be the last one. So 1882 partnership requirements. This is a little bit to the left, we have to use the contract, right? So use of approved application materials. In this case, we use the model application with the addition of one additional section. It was based on what we've heard from the community at Manor Middle School about what they most wanted to see in this new school. So things like hands-on learning, extracurricular activities, mental health support. But because we were just adding to the model application, we didn't have to get that approved. The board also needs to approve a policy around authorizing and maintaining partnerships. That's the next item on your agenda tonight. Approved contracting materials, again, they're already approved if you use what's out there. You make changes, it's to be approved. And then the policy that's gonna be read tonight talks about having a fair, objective process to select a partner. So CEO, make sure you did that, right? That you followed your own policies in order to approve their partner. And then for turnaround schools, in order to get 1882 benefits, and this is a turnaround school, right? So in the 1882 partnership, it's going to be an innovation school. You're growing and you just want a new school, or a turnaround school, is a turnaround school. To be eligible for these benefits, they have to have a track record of performance in the state of Texas. So it can't be again. Someone who wants to start a new school and has a crazy idea. Which all three of us this year. I think that might be it. Oh no, there's a timeline. This is see how it says ideal state. That's partially because of what we talked about. It's partially because we hope negotiations go smoothly, etc. So we are in a little bit of phase 2. We're in phase 2, so we're reviewing the applications. About to conduct interviews with each of the applicants. So staff met today and generated questions like where you can read applications. Some of these are hundreds of pages long. It's not the same as hearing about it and or seeing it, right? If the team chooses to want to go see it in action somewhere. Also gathering community input. And then we'll sort of generate a recommendation to Dr. Samani, who will then bring the recommendation forward to you as a board. Again, the target is December. And again, I want to reiterate, yes, TEA suggests December, but again, you all begin your choice process. These families begin thinking about where they're going next year in December, if not in December, in January, right? And teachers decide where they want to work next year, and so delaying probably still isn't the best decision for families and staff, even if. But again, I know the absence of ratings changes that dynamic clearly.
I have a question. With ratings not being released and looking at these 3 providers that have submitted and knowing just they're not necessarily the most favorable, and looking at those ratings and knowing that the goalpost, could be moving as well for them, what options do we have in looking at any other providers? Because, putting an underperforming partner in place does not bode too well for me and for our students. So just kind of interested in, just because somebody is on the list and approved as an 1882 partner, knowing that accountability ratings are changing, do we have any other options to having another call and looking for best, really best in class, right? And who's coming in? Because I look at these and I personally understand.
Thank you for that question, because that was gonna be one of my questions. Do we have an opportunity to reopen applications if anything? Or is it just too late?
As TU's timeline stands now, no, we don't have an opportunity. And that doesn't mean that the those in power, let's just say there's accountability ratings come out and these three partners all tank. I don't see any problem if we find Dr. Black and say, all right, what do you want me to do with this?
Right.
I mean, I've asked, right, you know, because you were there, I've asked my, we're asking hard questions. And to be at a point where we need to do what's best for our kiddos and to only have a partner that's not performing and notice us, that, to me, that's really concerning. And it puts us at more risk than not.
I mean, I think the reality is, unfortunately, the state with them, there's not a deep bench. Districts that have proven track records of turnaround or turnaround ratings, that's part of the reality. I could say something different, right? You know, and so I think that's mind it on the current timeline. You know, I do think we had some questions today on the staff right around like, what would you predict their rating would be this year, right? Or like, because some set at least provided their star data, for example, right? Which is not the same as accountability, right? But can show some precursors and others did. Certainly questions will ask both of the applicants in the capacity of release, but also of like their districts or their authorizers, right? Like, what is your impression of the school's capacity to do this well? Yes, don't want to rely on everyone making themselves sound great, right, on paper. And so, but I think you all as a board, regardless of what TEA says, like, we'll have to decide if you feel like none of the applicants meet your bar, like, you're going to be damn between the rock and the hard place. Again, keep coming back to that analogy, not that we can't advocate that.
Thank you, Ms. Durden.
Mine was about funding, so we don't have, so they're gonna give us additional money, so just to be clear, the reason why we're even considering this is one, the accountability of taking over the district, and we get additional funds.
Right.
Now, if Manor Mill supersedes what the accountability and say they get a C or a B, or will the district, is the state still gonna give us money?
No additional money. It's
No.
only if you enter 1880.
Oh,
Yes.
we did.
If
But
you
if we,
enter-
what I'm saying, if we enter it and then they give us the scores afterwards, but our name is on this contract that says we're gonna do this.
If you continue with
Are
the
they still
partnership,
giving
you
us
will
money?
think the money is not based on Manor Middle School's rating. It is based on entering operating.
The 1882.
The 1880 partnership.
And that's what, because the 1882 is based on their rating, but the rating of, but entering the 1882 is not based on their rating. That's why I was like.
So
wait,
you all are
who's giving us the
choosing,
money?
you all are choosing to enter an 1882 partnership because of its rating, or,
Yes, and
but that is not the only reason districts could under law choose to enter an 1882 partnership.
Okay.
I feel like I want to say that the funding isn't that big to make me want, let's go.
No.
It's not.
No,
Let's do it
I
anyway.
get your point, it's like, you're debt.
well, if it's, hey, we're gonna give you funding and take over the school district, it kinda is but do what you wanna do, it's not a really do what you wanna do.
Right, it's
like
never
your mom
been a
saying,
do what you
You
wanna
can
do.
like, go to your room or.
If we would do what we wanted to do, we'd give Manor Middle School 2 more years to.
Right, exactly.
Another money, so.
Still come regardless of.
I think something else we need to all keep in mind, the reality is It's not gonna be a whole bunch of people, knocking on the doors to help a year that's in the fourth year of failing. And so we do have to get the very best, but know that we're not looking for people who are gonna wanna work that hard for, you know, that data, that status. And just be aware, you know, those who probably are 1 year behind, probably got all kinds of applications, all kinds of people asking them and things. So I too want us to look at the very best, but know what the very best choosings are from where we are.
That goes back to the emphasis on a partner. We want to find a good partner, if this is the route we're gonna go, and we're gonna have to truly partner with them, which means we are gonna have to tilt resources potentially towards middle school that other campuses won't get. And we've already, as a board, you've already committed yourselves to doing that already, which is why they're staffed up better than the other campuses right now. And we need to potentially continue that. And of course, that's all going to be negotiable in the contract. And also, how do you leverage the extra money from TDA would be negotiating whether they want to use that, what way to attract more staff or what have you. But yeah, that partner, I think I just want to make sure everyone remembers that, because it's not, here's a partner, we're all going to walk away and go back to business as usual. It's just not, you know, we still got 2 years to turn that school around.
I guess what really concerns me right now is that if the scores don't come out until after we've made all of these decisions, and then if the scores come out and they made it happen.
You know,
And that really bothers me that TEA is delaying these scores coming out, because there are many school districts waiting for these scores in order to make decisions like this.
right
And
now,
I know that it's a bigger problem than just Manor ISD, but boy, that's a tough place for them to put us in.
well, I'm just gonna say that the word on the street is end of October, we have rate. Whether that's true or not, who knows?
It says
Yeah.
September.
Well, the other thing that's floating out there is, you know, they start the special session on Monday, and there's a whole lot of wheeling and dealing going on right now, and I guarantee you, though no one's gonna say anything, they're talking about the accountability system and all that wheeling and dealing they're doing. So I could even see a scenario where they come out and say, we're gonna delay accountability scores for you.
A whole year, yeah. And then where do we,
Well,
and then
well, that's,
we're forced to make these decisions.
well, and that would be a game changer, because then I'm telling you all that now, because between October 16th and that November board meeting, I might be calling Monique, says, I need to change the whole agenda now, because what'll happen is, that sort of thing happens. TA is a little bit slow on their guidance, and so I'm gonna have to make some phone calls to figure out what does that mean for us. It just depends on the wording of how they decide to do that.
Because sometimes delaying ratings means that everything pauses, sometimes it means everything just carries forward, right? Which again, not saying that's what they're going to do, but during COVID, that's when different states did different, you know, so.
They're different things.
Yeah.
So does that mean that we also get to have another year?
It's all
It
in the
depends on
details.
the.
We don't.
Yeah, because a pause is, hey, another year. A carry forward is, we're carrying forward no matter what happened,
Right.
is
Correct.
from 2020 on.
Yeah.
That's a different thing.
And
But again,
that,
I don't know anything that they're going to do that. I'm just saying those are some of the things that we're gonna be like, when's that guidance coming?
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm going back to 2 years ago, when they, all the wheeling and dealing, that's kind of actually part of the problem is, Mayor Middle School, our speaker's right, they got a D. But the Senate bill they passed ignored it.
Ignored it.
Ignored it, just crossed it out. They said,
Completely
you don't get Fs, you don't get Ds, we're just gonna go right past
They're
that.
counting the NA, or what was it, the N?
Not rated.
Not rated.
NR as an F.
And so and so that's what we ended up at.
That's not fair.
That was a question we brought.
Yeah.
And so that, like I said, like in special session, who knows what's gonna happen, whether they'll address or not. We may never even hear whether we talked about it or not. But like I said, I'll keep the board informed if I hear things. Right now, we know nothing. In fact, we don't even know what's on the agenda for the special session, because the governor hasn't told us.
Right.
We're just guessing.
I know.
I think that was actually the last slide.
Okay,
Oh, well, this is about the policy. Again, I think that's one you want me to.
Well, I don't want, that's the next agenda
Oh, yeah.
item, so I don't know if you wanted to move on.
so let's, see if there are any lingering questions on the actual work discussion on 1882, the partnership. I think everybody's asking for a break, right? 5-minute break.
Yeah.
All those in favor? Okay. Second. All right, 5-minute break. The board will now take a recess at
6:05.
6:05.
Yeah, I meant.
Wait.
Thank God for all of you.
All right. That's See that? Don't have to bang it. The board will now restart our meeting from recess at 6:15. And we will now move to item 5.2 on the agenda, first reading for 1882 adoption policy. Please make note, this is simply an information item. Dr. Lamont, or
There's an extra copy of the policy, so I was just handing it back to you.
okay,
No, this is just the authorizing policy, and what it is, it creates no action. It is required prior to authorizing an 1882 partner. And so this policy is the model policy the TA gives us. Any modification, I don't recommend any, but any modification would require approval process going through the Texas Education Agency. It basically outlines what Ms. Lagana just went through about the board's role in overseeing and the process for revocation. If so desired, it also mentions the process for renewing the contract at the end of the contract. And so it is there for information purposes only. You have a physical copy there, and Ms. Lagana could also answer questions. So
did everyone receive a copy of it in their folder? We should. Yes, it's there.
I haven't looked that long for me. But, because I haven't looked at the public, if it's online as well.
in the board book,
No, I'm saying with the,
Is it
on the website.
the authorizing policy. Oh, I said yes.
Okay, cool.
Laura.
Thank you.
We posted it. And it is in our word book for sure as well.
And it will be under consent, unless the board chooses otherwise, for the next board meeting. Like I said, the voting on the affirmative about this policy does nothing in of itself. It just creates the framework for you to be able to have an AT&T partnership in the future. If you so choose.
And it doesn't, the policy will not necessarily expire unless a board at some point changes it.
Correct, it just, and if you never use it, just sits there.
Right.
So we're not voting for a 1882 partnership at all, Miss. We're just voting.
We are only voting next month for
The
a policy to allow us to enter into a chapter 1882 at any time, whether it be now or in 10 years.
And if the board wants to change anything, we still gotta have time for the TA before we
Right.
even make that. This is standard.
I will also just highlight, it does include like revocation criteria and some of the things you guys hope would be in a model contract, and so while this isn't, page 5, thank you. So while this isn't the contract itself, and there's any more detail on that, there are a lot of the things you all were asking about.
So unless there are any further questions by any board members, are there? Confirmation of regular board meeting is October 16th, 2023. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn at 6:19 PM.
I have a motion by Ms. Cortez. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Guerrero. All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, everyone, for your time. It is 6:19.